Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining this evening. A very nice July evening. So thanks for joining. I'm sure you would like to have a glass of something cold outside, but thanks for joining. We're just going to wait a couple of minutes before we get started. As always, we will record these webinars, so they will be available afterwards should you want to review them, or should you want to pass them to your colleagues or friends, etc. So, but yeah, we'll just wait a couple of minutes. And apologies for postponing this one a couple of times. For various reasons, we had to push it back a couple of weeks. 1 week was incredibly hot with no air conditioning, but thanks for joining. Okay. Right, let's get going, and then hopefully we'll get a few more people joining. So yeah, today is all about marketing and your private practice, and in particular, looking at planning, budgeting, and measuring ROI, return on investment. Now, we have done quite a lot of marketing webinars over the last couple of years, but this one's purely around budgeting and planning. It's something we get asked a lot about. How much should I spend on marketing? What should I spend it on? So we'll get started. For those of you that are not familiar with the webinars, we've been running these now for a couple of years. We help you navigate the world of private practice. We help you get a better understanding of some of the areas perhaps you're less familiar with. We do try and help you avoid common pitfalls and mistakes, which sometimes can occur, and they can be quite costly. So our job is really to help you sort of save time and money, get to launch your private practice with confidence, get those revenues in sooner than you think, and then really start to build and grow and become successful in private practice. If you're unfamiliar with Designated Medical, we are a full service consultancy and agency for private healthcare practitioners and clinics. We help from everything right from the very start when you're getting started with company incorporation, strategy, budgeting, CQC registration, right the way through to launching, building your brand, helping you launch your website, thinking about your operational plan, who's going to answer the phone when your patients ring, through to growth, the day-to-day management of your clinic. That includes medical PAs, practice management, billing, bookkeeping, ongoing CQC compliance, right the way through to when you're perhaps, at the end of your career and you're thinking about kind of exiting retirement. We can help you kind of build value in that practice so that you can pass it on and actually gain some value from all your hard work over the years. So that's enough about us. Today, as I mentioned, it's all about marketing, all about basically how to budget for it, the approach to be thinking about. Obviously, it's a very different world from the NHS to private practice. You are launching a private healthcare business, so you will need to think about it slightly differently. But the things we'll cover today include the fact that marketing isn't optional. It's in the basic infrastructure and foundations of your private healthcare clinic. You'll need to think about budgeting and think about the different phases, which we'll go into in a bit more depth, including sort of launch phase and scaling. And then some of those kind of key cornerstones and considerations. So if you're thinking about building websites, then these are the things you may want to think about. Thinking about your marketing acquisition strategy, where you're going to find those patients, how you're going to find them. And conversion we'll spend a bit of time on as well, which is an incredibly important part of the patient journey, which sometimes gets neglected. And ultimately, we'll also try and think about return on investment, how you can measure the success of your marketing going forward on a monthly basis, things like cost per new patient, inquiry conversion rates, number of inquiries you're generating each month. What's the appropriate level of marketing that you need to grow your clinic the way that you want to grow it? Because maybe you're just thinking about doing 1 or 2 days a week for the first kind of couple of years. And in that case, you may not need to do a huge amount of marketing compared to a big clinic that's launching 5 days a week, 6 days a week. So very, very different. I'm Simon. You'll be familiar with me. I host these webinars each and every month, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Designated Medical. I've also spent the last 7 years helping doctors set up and grow their private practices. So I've done this quite a few times. So, but very happy to go through this with you this evening. So let's start by getting started. I should say we do have a Q&A session at the end, so do feel free to pop your questions in the chat, or do just unmute yourself at the end of the webinar. I'm very happy to take 10 minutes out at the end. We should be about half an hour in total, so I'll let you get back to your nice summer's evening very soon. So getting started. So one of the key things here, and we covered this in another webinar fairly recently, is that mindset shift from the NHS to private. You will have to go and find those patients. In the NHS, those patients will find you via various kind of channels and referrals. But in private practice, you're going to need to find your patients. They won't come to you automatically, and therefore marketing is not optional. whatever form of marketing you're doing, whether it's an extensive ad campaign or it's just a good solid website with Google reviews and Doctify and maybe a referral strategy, but you will need to do some level of marketing in order for you to grow and scale your private practice. You will be entering into a competitive market. There will be other clinics and practitioners that are doing very similar things to you, and your patients will have a choice. So it's important that you're able to communicate your USPs and your clinic proposition clearly through your website and through your various marketing channels, which include your medical PA when that patient calls up. It's important to invest that time in marketing early doors because it will pay dividends in the long run. So cutting corners at the start, building a cheap website, not really thinking about search engine optimization, not thinking about being visible online. If you launch without marketing in place, that will come to hurt you down the line, and it will cost more to retrofit that further down the line. So things like website, search engine optimization, populating your social channels, your Google My Business review platform, your profile are incredibly important. And do start to think about putting yourself in the shoes of the patient. If they were looking for a clinic like yours or a practitioner like you, what would they be searching for? Where would they go? So it's a very different mindset to working in the NHS. And as I touched on a couple of times, it is infrastructure, like a really good practice management system, like Assemble or Carebit or Paboo. There are lots of different systems out there, or CQC registration. Marketing is not optional. You need to budget for it like you would do anything else. You won't get zero guaranteed referrals. You may get some, but they're not guaranteed through your NHS work. You will be responsible for that patient flow. So it's your responsibility to find those patients and generate those inquiries. And investing in those marketing foundations will pay dividends in the long run. So having a good website when you launch is really important, rather than waiting 6 months and then having that website. Owning your own online brand is important too. So we're going to touch a little bit on budgeting now, which I know is a hot topic and one that we do a lot of work with our clients and helping them sort of understand what levels of budget they need. Now, one of the important things here is planning and budgeting. So really working in advance what your timelines are going to be. So if you're thinking of launching in 2027, in January, for instance, then CQC is going to be an important consideration. Now, typically, you're looking at a 6-month window. It's also going to take you 3 months to build your logo, brand, and website. So you need to factor those into the timeline. And what we typically do is help our clients and doctors build a kind of roadmap like this that looks at various quarters and what are the priorities that you need to focus on. And at each of those quarters, there's going to be a marketing element that you'll need to be thinking about. So in Q1, for instance, you'll need to be thinking about a strategic review potentially, market viability. If I'm going to launch this private practice, I'm going to invest my hard-earned income into this. Is there a market for it? And we do quite a lot of this work where we assess the competition, the level of search volume, the area in which you're looking to kind of launch. But that's a really important part of that process, as is the financial modeling. And it's at this point you should start thinking about the name of your clinic, your domain name registration. You should be thinking about your branding, what you want it to look and feel like, how it's going to compare to the competition, and your website design. So when you're thinking and planning for that, you then move into Q2, which is then you're looking at the design and build of it. You'll be thinking about your brand guidelines. You'll be thinking about the number of pages that you want on your website. So are you going to be launching with a 1-page website, 2, 3, 5, 10, 15? The bigger the website, we'll come onto this in a little bit, the more work that you're going to need to do, the longer the time frame is going to be. You're going to want to be visible online, so you're going to need to think about search engine optimization, as well as things like CQC registration at this point, and really getting everything set up for launch. Once you're launching in Q3, you need to be thinking about, okay, what's my customer acquisition strategy? What am I going to be doing in terms of content on my website? What about my social media platforms? How am I going to populate my Google reviews? So you're in that kind of launch phase, and then you're moving through to Q4. Once you've established those foundations, you then move into more of a growth phase. You start to invest in marketing and you start to accelerate the clinic. So at various phases, you're going to need to have a different sort of approach and a different set of considerations. Now, when you're budgeting for marketing, we recommend typically doing a 3-year plan, along with everything else that you need to look at. So this is just an example budget that we've built recently for a client. But you're going to need to think about, what am I going to invest in year 1? That's going to be your setup costs. You won't make a profit likely in year 1 because you'll need to have those setup costs. You'll need to think about things like your software, your clinic website. You're going to need to think about your practice management system, your CQC registration, all of the things that you need to kind of set up any kind of private business, never mind a healthcare business. You also need to think about who is going to do your marketing, because there's different aspects to a marketing budget. So are you going to do it yourself? You're going to allocate 5 or 6 hours a week that you're going to be doing the marketing yourself. Are you going to find a friend or a freelance that's going to help you build your website or do some social media marketing? What are you going to do? Or are you going to work with an agency that's more specialist, that can do specialist work around Google Ads, for instance, or search engine optimization? But there are the 3 different elements you need to think about. So you need to think about those foundations. So what those foundations are going to need in order for me to start marketing my clinic. What is the ongoing marketing I'm going to need to be doing each and every month to generate those patient inquiries and build my online profile? And am I going to be looking at media spend? So am I going to be looking at advertising on Google or Meta or locally? And therefore there'll be an allocation of budget towards media spend as well. So it's not just the marketing budget in its entirety. You need to break it down into those different elements. So as I mentioned a couple of times now, each of the different phases are going to require a different approach. You've got your launch phase, which essentially is your planning, and then moving into launch. So you've got everything lined up for when you do launch. Then you've got your early growth. So day one, when you open your doors, how are you going to go and find those patients? How are you going to build momentum? Ultimately, you want to get busy. You want to get your clinic booked up. So you're going to be investing in marketing channels to drive what we call patient acquisition. And then once you've established your practice in year one, and you start to think about scaling and growing, you can start to look at different channels. You can start looking at things like events or webinars, or investing in video content on your website, which is something we see a lot of right now. So a different approach needed, and a different approach to the budget. So when you do that 3-year plan, you'll need to think about the money that you want to invest. And that also really importantly ties back to how busy you want to be as a clinic. So there's no point spending £5,000 a month on marketing if you're doing a day a week, because you won't need that level of marketing. So it's important to bring it back to the strategy, bring it back to your work-life balance. What are you doing in the NHS? What are you doing privately? What are you doing with your other work? And what's the appropriate level of spend that you need in activity to generate the right level of inquiries to convert into new patients for you? So there's no point, like I said, you just need to make sure that you're thinking strategically about what you do with your marketing. So we talked about planning, we talked about and what to be doing, what to be thinking about before you launch. The launch phase is incredibly important. Obviously, you're opening your doors. You may be clearing your diary for 2 or 3 half days a week because you want to build your private practice. So what are the things that you really need in place? Well, most importantly is a really good professional website. You want to be, it needs to look professional. You're likely to be charging a private healthcare fees, and therefore a professional and premium website needs to be really important. Not something with, we do see sometimes websites with people where they have done it themselves. It doesn't look good. The photos they're putting on are from holidays and things like that. So we'd recommend a really good professional website. It's important probably to have it ready and live for launch. You don't want to be launching, getting through CQC registration, and then being delayed by another 3 months because you don't have a website and no one can find you online. You need to make sure you've got a clear and consistent brand. So think about the naming of your clinic. Making sure there's no other competitors out there that have named a similar clinic. You need to have a really clear identity, tone of voice, and a brand that your patients are going to trust. You want to make a really positive first impression. Also, you need to make sure that you're really clear about your USPs and you're differentiating from the competition. You'll also need to start thinking about your patient acquisition strategy. So who are the patients that you want to attract, and who are the patients perhaps that you don't want to attract with your private practice, and how you're going to attract them. So whether you're a local practice or whether you're looking at an online clinic, perhaps going national, how are you going to find those patients? How are they going to find you? So you need to be thinking about that. And then also probably the point that we're seeing a lot of attention on right now with new clinics opening up is the patient inquiry capture and response. So those response times are really important. And so if you're getting an inquiry, let's say coming in on a Friday afternoon at 5:30 and your medical PA is signed off for the weekend, the likelihood is that that inquiry won't be answered until Monday morning at 11 once the backlog's cleared. Now, if you've been spending £5, £6, £10 a click to get someone to your website to fill out a form on your website and no one's responding for 3 days, that's a problem. You're not going to convert that patient. So you need to think about having that 24/7 response kind of mechanism in place. So when that phone rings on a Saturday morning or an email inquiry comes in, you've got a way of responding. And there's ways in which we can help with that. But a really important part, once you start investing in marketing, you don't want to be let down through the operations side. Okay, one of the questions we get asked a lot is, well, how much should I spend on a website? And that is a very open question, and all depends really on what you're looking for. But I thought I'd give you a good indication here of what designated charge for what we consider to be a premium looking website. Now, there are options out there. You can use Wix and you can use GoDaddy. You've got various different platforms that make it cheap. AI tools are out there. But if you really want something that's professional, that's going to be built to last, we'd recommend building in WordPress. Now, these are our packages for a 1, 3, 5, and 8 page. We also do bigger websites as well. But the more you move to the right-hand side and you want to launch with a big 8-page website, it's going to cost you more money because obviously there's more content and you're going to need to write that content, or we're going to have to write that for you. We're also going to need imagery. So you're going to be looking at, rather than 20 images, perhaps you're going to be looking at 100 images that all need to be approved. It's also going to take a lot longer. So if you want to launch with an 8-page website compared to a 1-page website, you really need to be thinking about a 6-month time frame to get that live, because you're busy people. And the likelihood is you're not going to be working on it full time. And an 8-page website, if you look at some of the sites that we've launched over the last kind of 12 months, it takes time. It really does take time and care. You'll care a great deal about the way it looks and feels, the content and the imagery, and rightly too. On the left-hand side, we recommend typically, if you're launching a clinic, a small clinic, a 1-page website will suffice. Your logo, your brand identity, your guidelines. Typically, that's going to cost you $3,995, 50% typically upfront, 25% in month 2, and then the final installment in month 3. So when you're thinking about budgeting for that, you can factor that into your budget. Of course, there are many options out there, but I think typically you are looking normally at a minimum of like, £2,000 to £4,000 for a good professional website, depending on whether you've already got a logo and a brand identity in place. But something there for you to consider. You'll also, alongside the website, need to think about the marketing channels. And there were 3 categories here that you need to be thinking about. One is your owned. These are the things that you own. So your website, your domain, you own that. You own the blog on your website. You own your social media because you've established those. The email newsletters you send out, your Google My Business profile. These are all things that you own as part of your private clinic, and you'll start to build those out. Your earned channels are those that you need to work and put resources in, time and attention and care. So these are things like your Google reviews or your Doctify profile, generating word of mouth and referrals through your network of private GPs or consultants, your organic kind of social shares, maybe your profiles on a private hospital or a private health insurance website. PR, so getting PR mentions, maybe that's locally or nationally, and search engine optimization. You don't build search engine optimization visibility without a little bit of effort. It takes time and it takes care and it takes attention. Finally, you've got your paid channels. These include pay-per-clicks. This is Google Ads. You've got Meta Ads in here, localized advertising, sponsorship, anything you might want to be doing regarding events. These are paid channels. These ones you don't own or earn, but you have to spend money in those channels. So again, thinking about your marketing budget again, how you're going to break it down, how much money you're going to be spending on your website, how much money you're going to be spending on things like Doctify, on building your Google reviews, who's going to do that for you, and are you going to be considering doing events or webinars or sponsorship or paid advertising? So you'll need to think about those as line items in your budget. Now, the patient acquisition funnel is a really important concept to get your head around, because the money that you're investing in marketing when you're putting it in the budget is there designed to do something for your clinic. So firstly, day one, when you're starting out, you are trying to build awareness. You want to make sure that your patients can discover that you exist. So at this point, you'll be investing in things like your website, search engine optimization, building your social media profiles. You might be looking at Google Ads or PR. The next tier down is that they found you, they've come to your website, they found your social channels, and those patients are now considering you amongst the competition of, well, this is maybe a clinic or maybe a practitioner that I want to work with or want to be treated by. So this is where investment in your website, your pages in your website, your Google reviews, your Google My Business profile, perhaps LinkedIn or social media are all going to help create those kind of trust points, those trust signals to generate that interest and ensure that you're that clinic of choice that they then go through to. Once they've decided that it's you they want to speak to, and they're going to contact you. Now, that could be via phone, live chat, it could be email, it could be a website form they submit. Those inquiries that you're generating, you'll need to think about how are kind of people going to launch those inquiries? Are they going to be, who's going to be answering the phone if someone calls at the weekend? What about live chat on your website? Who's going to be monitoring the email? Are you going to set up automated email responses? So those are the things you need to think about in terms of inquiries. Then they become a patient. So what about the online booking? So if they can book online via your website, what does that journey look like? Is it really easy? Is it really clunky? So spending time thinking about your practice management system, online booking, and that patient journey on website is going to be really important. And finally, you may, perhaps in years 2 and 3, start to think about referral programs. So you start to convert your happy patients that are leaving positive reviews about you into advocates for your clinic. And they go out there and they start spreading the word, they start leaving reviews, they start recommending you to family. So the entire function really of this funnel is to shift people from awareness through to interest, inquiry, booking, and then referral. And that's the model here. So when you're thinking about your marketing budget and where you're spending it, depending on where you are and which stage of the life cycle, these are the things that you'll be looking to drive. Okay, so we've talked about planning, we've talked about budgeting, we've talked about launch phase and the things you need to kind of be getting up and running. We're now going to move into sort of years 1 and 3. So you've built those foundations, you're now starting to become successful, your clinic's booking up. So what's important then? Well, you've got a completely different kind of emphasis then at this point. So perhaps your Google Ads is working really well, perhaps you're sort of getting close to capacity. Well, the first thing you're going to be doing is looking at your marketing performance. So you're going to be looking at, okay, so what am I spending each month and what am I getting back from my marketing? Is my Google Ads working? Am I getting most patients through Meta? Is it coming organically through my website? So I've got lots of great content and people are finding me through my blog. So once you've selected the channels that are working for you, you can dial up the investment in those that are working and dial down the ones that aren't. Or you can start to expand your marketing and start to explore different channels. Start to do some newsletters, start to do some more social media. You may want to do an Instagram live, or you may want to do a webinar, you may want to do an event. These are things that we are starting to do with our clients that are slightly more established. Like I said, a CRM system. So where are these leads going? You know, you'll have your practice management system that will have your patient records, but when an inquiry comes into your website, where is that information being stored? Can you set up auto kind of generation sequences in something like your practice management system like Semble? What about automated follow-ups that are coming off the back of patient inquiries via your website? Or what about WhatsApp for business that you can set up on your website? So there's lots of different things to think about there, as well as things like AI search, SEO on your website, making sure that you've got really kind of like niche content. So people with a specific issue or a very localized problem are looking for you, you're the clinic they're going to find first. So as you build momentum, you can see that the shift in the kind of tactics and the strategy that takes place. Now, as you become more successful, as you start to increase your days, so perhaps you're moving out of the NHS now and you're in years 2 and 3, you're committing 2 or 3 days a week to your private practice, you can then start thinking more about expanding, investing more in marketing. You may want to have a multi-channel presence. Maybe there is more that you want to be doing around SEO. You maybe want to build more pages on your website because you can see the growth that you're getting through organic traffic. You may want to be doing more on social. We're seeing a lot of growth right now in video, people starting to replace PDFs and Word documents for the patient journey into kind of video content that can really help a patient understand the journey they may be going through with your clinic. You may start to think about new services that you want to offer. Perhaps there's a membership program, or you may bring in an additional practitioner to bolster your practice and offer different services that you perhaps didn't think about in year 1. And you may start to think about ways, certainly for some clinics, that you may want to be looking at patient retention, building that advocacy that I mentioned earlier, and thinking about the lifetime value of a patient. So I've helped set up many menopause clinics and hormone clinics in the past, and that retention of patients is incredibly important. So how do you build that? So these are all considerations for once you're further down the line in years 2 and 3. Again, these all tie back to your clinic strategy. What is your vision for the clinic? How big do you want it to be? How busy do you want to be? Having a lifestyle kind of 2-3 days a week for your private practice, or building a network of clinics internationally, obviously is very different. Now, we did touch on ROI right at the top of the webinar, and I just want to touch on that now. So when you get your revenue through, and you'll probably be using something like Xero or QuickBooks to tell you how much revenue you generated from your private practice each month, you need to understand the performance, what's driving the performance of your clinic, and what we use is this method or model called Pirate Metrics: acquisition, activation, revenue, retention, referral. Now, we'd recommend that you set up a monthly dashboard. It doesn't need to be particularly kind of complex, but you should be tracking the things on this slide. So you should be looking at website traffic. You should be looking at how busy your website is. Where's the traffic coming through from? How many phone calls are coming in? When are they coming in? And that shows you that you are reaching your target patients, and they're finding you, that they know you exist, and they're starting to ask questions and starting to find you. Then you move on to the activation. This is where they try the service. So that may be a discovery call. It may be a callback form that they're filling out. It may be a quiz completion. So we're now seeing quite a lot of quizzes going on to some of the new health tech type services. So that we will call an activation. So if you're getting 100 website visits, you're getting 20 quiz completions, you're starting to drive that acquisition funnel that we spoke about. Then you're looking at the conversion into revenue. So you certainly will be looking at the number of new patients that you'll be generating each month. That is really the lifeblood of your clinic. How many initial consultations are you having? How many follow-up consultations? How many other consultations are you having? So you'll need to be tracking those because they will all contribute to your revenue. What about your total revenue per clinic? What about patient churn? Are you losing patients? So these are the things you should be thinking about regarding retention. And then ultimately, how many referrals are you generating? So how many 5-star patient reviews are you getting on Google reviews, on Doctify? Because that's going to drive that referral engine that we spoke about earlier. I worked in a clinic once where we didn't spend anything on marketing in 1 year because our patients did it all for us. We were delivering a really good patient experience. They were going out and they were sharing that experience with their friends and family and their colleagues, and we were generating such a powerful word of mouth engine. We didn't need to advertise. We didn't need to do anything regarding kind of like marketing because it was that engine that was driving our clinic forward. So it's a useful lesson to learn there. So that's the end. I thought I'd do a quick summary. I hope it's been a bit of a whistle stop tour, and we have literally just scraped the surface today. But very happy to do a subsequent webinar and go into a bit more depth. The things we've covered today. Firstly, when you move into private practice, the mindset needs to change. You are no longer in the NHS. You are going to need to find those patients. You are going to need to build that infrastructure and those foundations, and marketing isn't optional. Have a think about how you're going to do your marketing and who is going to do it for you. Who is going to design your website? Who is going to design your brand? Is it going to be yourself? Are you going to be going online and using something like Canva? Have you got a friend or a freelancer that you're going to be working with? Or are you going to be using specific agencies to help you? Again, that's something we can advise with should you want to speak to us. Think about budgeting, that importance of having that financial plan, playing out different scenarios, but making sure that you've got the budget in place for your marketing. So those foundations we spoke about, the launch phase, making sure you've actually got inquiries coming in, and then how you're going to scale and grow over the course of years 1 to 3, improving your profile. But again, tying it back to your clinic vision, your clinic strategy, and the appropriate level of marketing to drive those inquiries for you. We touched on key considerations, the importance of a really strong website. We're finding that even in the last 12 months, a really professional website, well structured, that can be found not only by Google, but also by the new AI LLM engines. Increasingly, people are putting in very specific requests now. I'm a 45-year-old man, I'm suffering from X. These are my kind of symptoms, I'm looking for Y. Often people go into great detail to find the clinical practitioner that's right for them. Whereas 12 months ago, 18 months ago, it was Men's Health Clinic, Harley Street would be a typical search, but we're seeing a real shift in the way that people are using search, the public are using search. How are you going to find your patients? And the right patients? You want to have the right volume, but also the right quantity, so the right quality. So your patient acquisition strategy and having an idea of the channels and what you want to use and how you're going to budget for that is important. And then conversion. So once you've generated those inquiries, when they come in, 7 o'clock on a Thursday evening, how quickly can you respond? There are tools out there that are available that allow you to do that. We've just launched a new 24/7 AI medical PA service that captures 100% of the call. So you never miss a call. You get that transcript. It comes into your inbox first thing in the morning. So it enables you. They can also integrate with technology like Semble or Carebit or various other kind of practice management systems that can look up availability and book online. So we're really seeing a shift in the way that technology is helping private practice. And finally, we talked about monthly KPIs. So we talked about how you can measure your return on investment, building that dashboard, making sure you are measuring the impact of your marketing. And if you're not seeing a response, then going back to the drawing board and then thinking again about other channels and perhaps a different approach. So thank you very much for your time this evening. Are there any questions? Please use the chat function should you want to ask a question, or do feel free to unmute yourself. I'm very happy to spend the next sort of 10 minutes or so. I think we've pretty much tied it up within half an hour, but I am here should you want to speak to me. I what next? Well, next steps. Should any of what I've said today be relevant and you want to go into a bit more depth, we're very happy to do a 45-minute consultation with you, talk through your kind of plans, your vision. Just drop me an email at simon@designatedgroup.com or info@designatedmedical.com. Also, we've got a team here that specializes in CQC or practice management. So whoever the most relevant member of the team is, very happy to spend our time with you and help and guide you. You know, we're here to guide you through the long term. You can join our private practice group, our WhatsApp group. So that's been running for a couple of years. So it's a way of sharing ideas and joining a community. And we've got more private practice webinars coming up this autumn. So I think this is 24 that we've done, but we've got lots of different ideas in the autumn. So do let us know if there's a particular one that you want to look at. We continue to see a lot of interest in CQC. There's a lot of changes there at the moment. This week we heard about another shift, another change. Technology is a big theme right now. We're seeing some big leaps forward with technology and how you can embrace technology in your private practice. I've already touched on things like CQC compliance, touched on AI medical PA, automated marketing. There's a lot that you can do that can take the legwork and the admin away from the day-to-day running of the clinic. Video is incredibly important as well. We've got some new developments there. So we've got a lot of ground to cover, but we're always keen to hear from you in terms of what you would like to listen to. Do get in touch. So you can contact us obviously through the Designated Medical website, the info at. My email address, should you want to contact me directly, is simon@designatedgroup.com, not designatedmedical.com. We've got 23 of these webinars recorded plus today. So should you want to view those, drop me a quick email. Very happy to share those with you. We can send over a deck that's got a link to all the recordings. And again, if you do want that sort of 45-minute health check, MOT, or just a chat about your plans, you want to know, what the landscape looks like, very happy to book those in. So thanks very much for your time. Does anybody have any questions? Please use the chat function should you want to. I'm just going to stop the recording.